We will be taking them right now, so in a few minutes we will be taking group photos as well. So I think we can get started, and then we have more people joining us later on. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, so today is day 3, and we will be going over investing. Thank you for joining us again. Every day we're inspired by our speakers. We learn a lot of new content, and we're here to do that once again. Today's agenda is going to be, we're first going to begin with the introduction as we did, and we're also going to be taking pictures. Then for 15 minutes, we have a guest speaker who is Chloe Chia, and she has created a startup that is now creating different entrepreneurship programs in more than 30 schools. And she's also created a startup that works with 25 different restaurants. So you're going to get to hear from her and ask your questions. Then we're going to have an introduction to investing for 20 minutes. Then we're going to have breakout rooms for 15 minutes as requested. Everyone in the breakout, in the feedback forums yesterday really enjoyed the breakout rooms, and so that's something we're bringing back. We're also going to then have a discussion of mutual funds for 25 minutes. Then we're going to have a guest speaker who is Taylor Adams, and she's amazing. She has started the Women's Investment Network, and she's done all sorts of things related to business and finance all throughout her career. So you're going to learn a lot from her and also be able to ask your questions. Then we have a 5-minute break, which was also requested in the feedback forms. Then we're going to go over stocks and index funds for 30 minutes. Then we're going to have a Kahoot, and today we're going to have our feedback survey and closing ceremony 15 minutes after 2, so a little bit longer than usual events. Thank you for joining. Yesterday we had a total of 40 attendees from 9 different countries, and everyone really enjoyed the event, which makes us so happy. And again, everything that we talk about is financial education, and it's not advice. So if you ever want to make a decision, you should always consult with a trusted adult and do your own research. And also make sure that you're muted during the entire event, and make sure that you wait until the end of presentations to ask any questions that you may have. Now we want to take some group photos, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn my camera on. So I'm going to go to gallery view, and if everyone can turn on their cameras, that would be awesome. So if everyone else can also turn on their cameras, we can take the picture. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, everyone also smile. Okay, so I've taken the pictures and you guys can turn off your cameras if you want. Chloe is going to, Chloe has already joined us, so she can begin speaking.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Chloe. I'm currently a high school junior from Southern California, and the speakers at this amazing financial literacy workshop kindly invited me to speak to you all about an opportunity in startups that I wanted to offer to you all. To give a really brief, like 5-minute background, my name is Chloe. I'm currently a high school junior, and I started getting involved in the general world of like high school entrepreneurship and startups back in the freshman year of my high school. And I realized a really significant problem in the way that high schoolers are currently taught to create startups. And to give you an example, I started entering like tons of these high school business competitions. You guys have probably heard of them, like the Diamond Challenge, Blue Ocean Challenge. I did FBLA, and all of these like typical high school cliche ways you get into entrepreneurship. And the huge problem that I saw was that a lot of these high school startups, like if you actually, meet the founders and like kind of dig a bit more, a lot of them don't actually create revenue. And I was like, oh wow, this is so interesting because some of them do have revenue, but it's not recurring. And I thought that was so interesting how a bunch of high school startups don't actually have revenue, and that instead what they do is that they instead enter a bunch of high school business competitions. And the typical process, right, is to write a 5-page or 10-page business plan. You pitch in front of like 3 judges, and then if you're lucky enough to be one of the hundreds or thousands to be selected, you get a check and then you walk away home. And the problem with that process, what I saw, number one, those startup teams are taught to convince investors and not customers. When you're in like your early stages of startup creation, convincing your customers should be like the only thing that matters because those are the people buying your product, right? But in terms of these startup competitions, you were taught to convince investors and judges. And I thought that was a really like wrong process. The second thing was you were being taught to create business plans over actually talking to customers. Talking to customers is like the really great way to find out if your product is actually going to work, but creating a business plan is really built on a lot of hypotheses and things that you're not really sure if it's going to work or not. So the whole thing that we wanted to do at the Lemonade Stand, which is the organization that I'm currently at, is produce really high quality and intensively researched playbooks by people who have actually done it themselves. So we published 1,500 to 3,000 word guides on ideation, marketing, accounting, finance, economics, and our newsletter coming out in a couple of days is actually going to have 3,000 word guides on stocks and another 3,000 word guide on investing by students who are like interning at really cool internship places like wealth management areas and growth equity areas. And I think it's super cool to just learn from teams who have done it themselves. To give a bit of background on me, currently I run a startup called Munch. It's order food by text for high schoolers. And my team and I actually applied to Y Combinator, which is an incubator that grew Airbnb, Reddit, Twitch. It was a super great experience applying there. And we actually got to the interview stage, which was really cool, talking to these people who grew really incredible companies before. So at that point, I thought, okay, maybe the startup model is actually working, because in freshman year of high school, I entered a bunch of competitions, didn't get anywhere with my startup. But in second year of high school, I decided, let's stop with all the competitions and let's start actually talking to customers and building out my product and trying to sell it. And so that's why I created the Lemonade Stand, to provide a lot of actionable advice to teams like you. And because of you all, I really want to offer this newsletter opportunity to you guys. Currently, it's invite only, and we turn it that way because we want to create a more like intimate community with a bunch of awesome student founders. But because all of you are at this wonderful workshop, I wanted to allow you guys to not be invite only, and you guys will be able to get a request or access to join the newsletter a couple hours after this event. So to get access to it, all you guys need to do is just fill out this form. It's a quick form that just asks for your email. And then if you guys want background on like the newsletter and example insights you guys will be getting, you guys can also follow this link. But yeah, I think that is it from my end. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak at this wonderful financial literacy workshop.
That's awesome. So if you guys also have any questions, you can ask Chloe related to startups or business or anything you want to ask. If not, okay.
All right, great. I see the question in the chat, how to come up with a startup idea. So the way to find an idea, the process that I would take is not to like come up with ideas by like sitting down and trying to think of ideas. Instead, what I would do is try to get a notebook of all of the things all of the problems and like challenges you face in your day. So that way you create a really organic process of not creating a problem and then creating a solution to solve it. Instead, you're noticing a problem and then creating a solution to target that. And the problem with this is a lot of ideas only make a person's life like maybe 10 times or 20 times better, when in reality, it should like be remarkable and life-changing. It should be like 100 times better, 1,000 times better. And the reason for this is, if you guys know Uber, right? Order a taxi from your phone at any time. A lot of people actually never used a taxi in their life before. And I find that so interesting because they never had a need for this. But because Uber made, find taxis so simple with the click of a button, people changed their sort of life systems and their daily habits to fit the startup. And that's how like disruptive you should be. A lot of startups aren't really disruptive, and it's really hard to find an idea the first try. So what I would do is like come up with like 5 to 10 ideas that you think are disruptive or life-changing, and something that you experience. It has to be an idea that you're passionate about. Don't like Google startup ideas online and then like try to find one that fits with you. It has to be something that you personally relate with. And then I would go ahead and just test those ideas out. Build a fake landing page with like a fake buy button and track how many people go on that buy button, and track how many people don't go on the buy button but view your landing page. And that's what I would try to do. Talk to a bunch of people in that target group, and then that's how I would narrow down your startup ideas. All right, another question is, how do you earn profit with your startup? Yeah, so in terms of startup profits, I think a lot of startups that are feasible earn more profit. So for example, with your first startup, I would lean less towards like product startups, just because it's a bit harder and a higher barrier of entry to learn how to manufacture a product. Of course, if you really want to do that, go ahead. But in terms of myself, I'm not too experienced in that, so I can't really give advice in terms of like creating a product. What I do think most student startups start with is like software as a service products, so SaaS products, right? Because they're super low energy. And in terms of my startup, we've probably only spent $200-ish in our 4 months of operation. So it's going with like a software startup, we definitely have lower fees. All of our fees are just text messaging fees. We use Twilio to send out our text messages. So I would try to price it as like a software, and then that way it's extremely easy to get off the ground, because it's just easier to price something that's software based rather than product based. Another question is, how do you budget your revenue? Yeah, so in terms of my team, what we do is we stick really simple in terms of finance. So we have like literally revenue, costs, and then we just break down by profits month by month. And in terms of like budgeting your revenue, I would say if you're talking about pricing your product to customers, I would really try to like try out different things and like try out things every single week to see what would stick. Because pricing, I haven't found any great articles about pricing out there. So I would try just like throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks and seeing if customers buying more, if they're buying less. That's what I would say is the best way to price your startup. In terms of budgeting, just goes back then, being cheap is actually really great because it actually leads to a ton of innovative and clever things. And I would say you want to stay cheap, not only to be like clever and innovative, but because people will ask you stories about like clever, innovative ways. And if you're applying to incubators like Y Combinator or Techstars, which I think you should, even if you don't think you can go there personally, but it's a really great experience just for learning about your startup. They're going to ask you these questions and they want to see these like clever stories. So it's really great for like creating those organic, clever stories to tell them. So I would say like try to be cheap, and that leads to like natural cleverness. And then another question is, how did you find a team for your startup? Is mostly friends? Yeah, so I have a team right now of a friend who was a childhood friend who I knew from 5th grade. So I just asked her, do you want to create a startup together? And then we have another person who I met on LinkedIn. And so we reached out to him that way. But I would say the process that I used for finding a team was not great at all. It was purely off of luck. I would say try to go for friends, because friends, obviously, it's more fun to work with them. But I would say make sure that they'll actually do the work and be held accountable, and that it's somebody who, you would want to work with, and not somebody who is like not super like into like entrepreneurship themselves. And this is really important because having a good team is more important than having the right idea or execution. If an investor or a judge sees that your team is not working together, talking over each other when they're answering questions and just not performing like a good team with good chemistry, they're automatically going to like say no. And that's how important a team is, because when you're doing startups, this team should not last for just like 3 or 4 months. You should be thinking long term. Like, what if the startup actually does go far, right? You want to think, is this a team I'll be willing to work with for, I don't know, like 5 to 7 years maybe. So because startups, they're pretty long term. And if you really want to go hard on startups, you have to find like a really incredible team. And I'd say the ideal team is like 3 people, probably, a marketing person for creative things, and then another one for tech and like software development, another one for like business operations. I mean, I'm not sure how much time I have, but are you okay with like answering more questions, or do you want me to stop?
You can continue until 6 more minutes.
Got it. Okay. All right. Another question is, how do you split profits between your team and how much goes back into the business? Yeah, so right now our team, we actually don't pay our team members. We actually split it up based on equity. So since we have 3 people on our team, we just split the equity into 33.3% for each person. I would say at the early stage of your business, and since you all are like so young, like in high school and such, I would just like put the money back into the business, like 100% back into the business. I see a lot of high school startups like pay people to do their tech for them, for example, and stuff, that is just to hire great people from the start and have them build everything and give them equity in return. And that's because, you want something to be scalable. You don't want different people building your tech stack, right? You want the same person or same 2 people to be building the same tech stack, so that way they know how it is, and they know how to build it when you guys actually do grow. Yeah, if those are all the questions, then I'll give it back to you, Armida.
Okay, that was great. I think that what you do with startups and just your knowledge on it is absolutely amazing. And so we're going to be sharing the newsletter with our audience after this event. Soon we are going to start with an introduction to investing. We're going to begin that in about a minute. In the meantime, I'm going to be playing some music until our mentor starts. Okay, so we are going to begin with an introduction to investing now. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So we can get started.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. So basically what we're talking about investing. So yeah, let me just, cool, okay. So these are the topics that we'll be going over: mutual funds, stock investments, and then index funds. And then these are the key terms. So it'd be the investments, bull, and then bond, and then bear, and then portfolio. So investment is allocating money for growth and profit. Bull is profit in investments. Bond investment, which shows what business or government owes you. Bear, loss in investments. And then portfolio collection of all investments made. And then these are the set topics that we'll be going through. So we'll be going through introduction to investing, factors to consider, risk management, mutual funds, stock investing, and index funds. So yeah. So an introduction to investing. So let's take a minute to go back to yesterday's workshop where we had Cinderella Cha and Tim Moreno as our guest speakers. Tim discussed the rule of 72 and how low interest rate on your money will mean that your money will take an incredibly long period of time to double. That is often what happens when you leave it in a bank account. So when you place your money in a bank account, what happens is that your bank account gives that money to someone else in the form of a loan and charges them a high interest on it, while giving a low interest on the amount you have placed in their bank. This is clearly not a very good deal, which is why it's necessary to invest your money alongside saving. Now, how does investing even work, and what are the specific reasons why investing is important, and how can you get started? So in this presentation, we'll be discussing that, and we'll go over just how starting with why investing is such an important matter, and then briefly covering like the different types of investments, and you will learn about it during this entire presentation as well. So in terms of why you should invest, one reason many invest is to build their net worth. So if you've seen like how Google searches where people put like celebrities and then afterwards net worth. So basically what is net worth? So net worth is just essentially the total amount of money someone is worth based not only on their bank account, but also how much they have in assets, which are items of like value, such as like real estate, which is homes, stocks or mutual funds, which are all different types of investments. So building up your net worth and having a lot of like savings can serve a great safety net for cases where you may have an emergency and need to dig into savings, as discussed in like yesterday's workshop, as well as for your future future financial goals in general. So for saving for retirement, as we mentioned earlier, investing is not risk-free. In your younger years, you have greater capacity to invest in more high-risk assets and invest a lot more money, and you could take advantage of that. However, when you are older and are close to the time where you want to retire, you will take less risk because of two main reasons. So I know that my dad, he takes less risk because he is like soon to be retired. But the reason they're taking less risk is because since you are close to retiring, you will soon not have an active source of income, so you can rely on. And having a huge loss through an investment can result a lot of financial strain. And then the second reason is that when you invest your money in a place for a long period of time, even if it suffered losses along the way, chances are the investment will go back up. And by the time you have withdrawn your money, chances are you will have lost that no money at all. However, having an investment suffer a loss and then having to subsequently withdraw the money will mean you will not have to given your investment a chance to recover from that loss that the investment you put into. So I think you've heard of it, but setting financial goals. So imagine like you and your best friend, they go on a vacation together, and you will need like to invest a lot of money in plane tickets, money for the hotel, eating out, transportation across the place you're visiting, and other expenses you may factor in. And of course, it'll cost like a lot. So I know I went to like Disney World and it cost like a lot for like the tickets and everything. So you may not have the full money to afford the vacation right now. Instead, what you do is you set a financial goal to save you a given amount of money by a given date. So while you can leave that money in a savings account, investing can help you reach the goal faster. So for financial goals, it could be set through like just like a document where you could write down your financial goals. I know some people use Notion, so it's a really good platform where you could just record that as well. So another reason investing is many investors like to support entrepreneurs and contribute to the creation of new jobs and new products. So they enjoy the process of creating and establishing new businesses and building them into successful entities that can provide them with a strong return on their investment. So I'm sure like you've heard of like Shark Tank, where these investors are coming in, they're being presented with a bunch of startups. It's kind of essentially like that, where they choose a startup that they want to invest in and expand from there. So therefore, there are individuals who like invest in these business ideas that are pitched to them by entrepreneurs. And if the business ends up becoming successful, the investor will have benefited from that success as well. So yeah. And then this is an overview as to why we invest our money, as well as why it matters so much. So the first three are most relevant to the audience today. So growing your money, saving for retirement, reaching financial goals, those are all important. And it connects well with our discussion yesterday as well. But now that you know like how you should invest, or the reasons why you should invest, what the goals is, and where do you invest your money, and which options are there. So if you could drop down in the chat, what I guess like what ways do you invest the most? Do you invest the most in growing your money, saving for retirement, reaching financial goals? Like why would you invest your money, if anyone would like to add? And you don't need to unmute, you can just probably drop in the chat. Yeah, growing money, yeah, that's great. Oh, you have a small business? That's awesome. Yeah, I had a sticker business, so I used money to expand that, growing money as well. Yeah. Yeah, these are all great. Oh my gosh, this is great. I definitely invest my money for growing the money in the long term. Yeah, financial goals. Yeah, in terms of financial goals, I keep mine in like a Notion doc, so I just keep track of like what I'm like spending on, and it's like really nice because it's all organized. Yeah. Okay. Great. I love your input. So in terms of factors to consider, so in terms of investing, when you want to decide what to invest in or which type of investment suits your personal life at the moment and in the next few years, there are a few factors you should consider prior to making the decision. So risk versus reward. So think about a mortgage you get from a financial institution like a bank. In order to give you that mortgage, they would check your credit report, which includes information about the bankruptcies you may have had, whether you have paid off loans well in the past, how you have handled your credit cards, and other relevant personal information. If you have a weak credit score, that would mean, or that would show signs that you're not being responsible with the borrowed money, and the bank may do one of two things. So I know that when I was like applying for a credit card, the person who was in charge, who was behind the desk, told me that to get a good credit score, and the bank may do one of the two things based on you got like anyone who doesn't have a good credit score. They may decline you for the mortgage, and they may charge you a very high interest on the mortgage they give you. And this is because seeing someone who has not been responsible with borrowed money in the past to banks is an indicator of a risky borrower, as they may not be able to pay back their mortgage. If the bank still chooses to take the risk and lend this person money, they will need to make it justified by increasing the potential for reward. And this is why they charge the borrower a much higher interest than someone who has an excellent credit score. So yeah, I think when I was applying a credit card for Bank of America, they made sure to tell me that I stay up to date with all the bills I had to pay so that I can increase my credit score, and then the rewards would be like beneficial. Okay, so individual risk and appetite. While it is important to know how much risk a given investment has and what the reward is, you also want to know whether for you the risk may be worth it or not. So for instance, if you're someone who is not too involved in investing and would like to invest simply to have your money grow over the long term and enjoy the benefits, then maybe high risk investments are not the way to go. So on the other hand, if you are super interested and don't mind losing some money here and there, then it may be the right fit. So there are broad examples, as this can be very greatly from person to person. So depending on their financial obligations, ability, the stability of their income, and other factors. So however, it's important to assess this in your life such that you can make the decision that is right for you. And yeah. So in terms of investment capital, so how much money do you have to invest? So the amount of money you have to invest can also impact your choices. For instance, you cannot invest in real estate with only $1,000, and you also cannot invest in certificates of deposits unless you have $500. With that said, you should not let the amount of money you have right now limit you from getting started in investing. Even if you have like $100 or so, there's always a way for you to get started on your investment journey. So I think like when I was in my econ class as well, professors always emphasize that investing early will lead to, in the long term, will build up your money. So I think like no matter what, you should start investing early. So time horizon. So one of the key factors of investing is whether you want to be doing for a shorter period of time or for a longer period of time. So if you wish to invest in short-term assets, then it will be important to you whether the asset is liquid or not. So in other words, like easy to take out for liquid. So can you take money out of it fairly quickly? For instance, let's say you are saving up for a short-term goal through investing. So you want to be able to take that money out after a year or two. And so it would be a good idea to invest in mutual funds. On the other hand, if you're investing for a longer time period, then investing in assets that are not referred to as liquid, which is taking the money quickly, can also be beneficial. So an example of this is real estate, such as like a house, when you're buying a house and or land. Yeah, and these are overviews that we learned: risk and reward, risk appetite, investment capital, time horizon. If you want, you can drop on the chat which one was most interesting out of the four, or to learn, or surprising. Yeah. Yeah, risk and reward. Yeah, I didn't know about that when I applied for my credit card. The person in the bank will make sure to like emphasize that a good credit score is very like necessary so that I could like pull out money easily, because I think it's kind of the first screening, and there are websites. I think there's like a Equifax or something where you can check your credit score, and it's really nice. Time horizon. Yeah, these are good. Yeah, I learned about investment capital, and that made me surprised. But so for risk management, as we already established, investment comes with risks. But how can we invest in a way where we can minimize our risk and maximize the reward? In the next few slides, we'll be going over just that. So for the first one is following the trend. So investing in the market when it is low can be beneficial because you can then buy low and sell high once it is uptrend again, meaning the general trend of the asset is upward. So I think like my dad, he invests in like stocks, and he usually buys low and then sells high so that the return is higher. So that's also what it can mean as well. And then rebalancing, long-term investors may try to manage risk by periodically selling stock investments that have come to take up too much of their portfolios. They will sell off those assets and buy more stocks and have underperformed, that have been underperformed. So, and this can be a forced way of buying low and then selling high. And portion sizing. So limit your exposure. If a given investment looks riskier than others, you can choose not to invest in it or invest a small amount. And then diversification. By ensuring that your portfolio is diverse, you will be able to reduce your risk of loss. This is because if one investment type does poorly, you will not have lost all of your money, as you have invested in a variety of areas as opposed to just one. So stay tuned for mutual funds when we discuss this more in depth. So I know like my dad also, adding on, he when he does stocks, he makes sure to invest in different companies so that when one company does poorly, then it's okay because that's just like one part of it. So making sure that you diversify the amount of companies is important. So testing your knowledge. So we went over a bunch of stuff, like content heavy, but I would love for you to like answer these questions. So number one, what are some reasons why you should invest? And then also if you want, you could jump around. So number two, which of the following investment is liquid, which is meaning safe. So these are the choices. Yeah. Growing your money. Yeah. Retirement, financial goals, starting a business. Yeah, you guys are doing great. Yeah. Yeah, so growing your money, saving for retirement, reaching financial goals, starting and expanding a business. These are all, yeah. Save for retirement, yes. Yeah. And then for number two, which of the following investments is liquid and safe? So which one is having a higher return? Yeah, so these are the three, which are mutual funds, stocks, and index funds. Yes, mutual funds. Yeah, you're doing great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you guys got it all right. And then the third question is, what are some factors to consider when investing? I think this goes back to the question I asked, like which one was the most like surprising that you've heard of? Yeah, risk versus reward, individual risk. Yes. Yes, individual appetite. Yeah. Yeah, you guys touched on it all. So it was risk versus reward, investment capital, time horizon, and then individual risk appetite. Good job. And then next one is, what are some risk management tips that we went over? So like when you're investing in these stocks, what are some risk management that you should follow? Yeah, diversification, trend, rebalancing. Yeah. Yeah, these are, yeah, I think Isabel did great. She highlighted most of it, but following the trend, um, diversification, rebalance, and then position sizing. Yeah, these are all great. And then maybe like drop down also what's a new thing that you've learned or whatever you thought was interesting. And then I could hand over to Armida for the next portion. I know that I didn't know about diversification. I thought it would be best to like invest on one part of a company or a stock, but I think I've learned that like diversification is very important just in case that, because the stock market is very like unpredictable. It could fluctuate and then increase, so it's kind of like it's hard to predict. So making sure that you diversify like what you're investing in is really important, and then basically investing early. Okay. I think one person asked to go back to the slides on risk management tips. So does that help, Natasha?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we can continue with the next portion of our event. That was great. So everyone got an introduction to investing, and then we're going to be going more in depth later on in the event. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second, and then we can move into breakout rooms, and I'm going to show you the questions for today's breakout rooms. You can also find the picture of the questions in the investing channel in Slack, but I'm also going to share my screen in case anyone wants to take a screenshot of that. So here are the questions. I'm going to give a second for everyone to see them, take screenshots, or maybe remember a few if you want. Okay, so if everyone got to look at the questions, I'm going to move everyone into breakout rooms in just a second.
Whoever said ordering Eggs Benedict doesn't pay off? Because
Okay, so now that we're joined with everyone, we're going to begin the second portion of teaching, which is all about mutual funds. And then after that, we are going to have a guest speaker. So I'm going to start sharing my screen right now. Okay, so we can get started.
Okay, hello everyone. So today I'll be talking about different types of investments, mainly on mutual funds. So there are tons and tons of investment options out there, like certificate of deposit, real estate, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, commodities, index funds, etc. There are a lot. And it can be really, really overwhelming just to decide what's the best to choose. But let me give a quick reference to yesterday's workshop. So anytime you would like to decide whether an investment is the right option, then you should consider three factors. So number one, is it liquid? And number two, is it safe? And number three, is there a high rate of return? Now, liquid means that you could withdraw your money from within any given time. So today we'll be going over three investment types. So we're going over mutual funds, so which is my portion of the event, the first half of the event, and then index funds and stocks, which is going to be the second half of the event. So mutual funds, what are they? So mutual funds are a bundle of different types of investments. So by investing into a mutual fund, you're actually not just buying one share of a company, you're buying multiple shares at once. So it brings it with many benefits, right? Which we'll be discussing right now. So the benefit of mutual funds, number one, is it is liquid. So which means you can withdraw your money from them at any given time. Number two, they're safe. So you're not as likely to suffer a very huge loss. And number three, it has a very high rate of return. So that means your investment will grow by a large amount. Now it makes them an excellent investment vehicle, especially if you're looking to invest long term. Now a quick reference back to yesterday when we learned about compound interest. So compounded, it's like a money multiplier effect. So this works with mutual funds too. And mutual fund, it pools together a ton of different people's money. It creates a bundle of securities. And within those mutual funds, it can include stocks, bonds, commodities, etc. for the investor to have. So introduction to mutual funds. So again, mutual fund is essentially a bundle of various securities that you purchase. So instead of picking individual stocks or investing in specific companies within an industry, those are done for you by someone called a fund manager. And you select which type of securities you want first, obviously, and then afterwards, by those specifics, they're done by a fund manager. So it's almost like mutual friendship on Facebook, but instead of a friend, it's a fund manager. So in other words, you do not get to pick the individual companies, but you get to pick the areas and the categories which you want to invest in, like gold, technology, stocks, energy, a lot. So when you purchase a mutual fund, the money that you invest gets combined with the money that many other people have invested by purchasing mutual funds. And then there's a fund manager who manages all of this accumulated money. So for different types of funds, there are often different managers. And if you go on a specific fund on a website and scroll down, you can often find the managers for that specific fund under a tab that is typically titled Portfolio Managers. Now, mutual funds are typically actively managed. So what that means is that a fund manager will consistently and regularly adjust that given portfolio and then add to and remove the investments in it. So there are so many companies out there which have websites that you could go to. So on this website, these companies have packaged funds together and also have a hired fund manager. So they're ready to manage the mutual fund that you want to invest in. You should obviously, of course, research. Research, very important. Research websites thoroughly. Okay, you have to make sure that you will not get scammed. And the websites you have come across, they are reliable with the current circumstances. And also several banks also offer mutual funds. So like almost all types of investments, mutual fund does come with fees. So oftentimes these fees, they slip under an investor's radar, and then sometimes an investor does not know that they're actually paying them when they're investing, because these fees are usually automatically charged. And because of this, this can lead to an investor being overcharged, and then they're paying more than usual without them realizing, since many investors of these mutual funds are not something called investment savvy because of the ease and simplicity of mutual funds. Mutual funds are easy and simple. So it is important that you understand what fees you'll be charged with and how much. And it's really important to keep an eye on your mutual funds regularly so that you can make sure that about the profit that you're making and they're not reduced substantially due to the fees that you're paying. So this is a term that is really important in understanding mutual funds. It's called management expense ratio, or MER. Now, this is the money that goes to sustaining the fund. So when you have a fund, right, money will go to analysis, they will go to paperwork, they'll go to fund managers' compensation, filings, accountant, lawyer, a lot. So the MER is a percentage. It is a percentage of a total amount that you have invested, and it is charged automatically and annually. So the MER of a mutual fund, typically between 1% to 3%, but it could be higher or lower depending on the mutual fund, the extent of the mutual fund, where they invest in. And the way that MER is calculated is first you divide the cost of running your fund and then the average dollar value of the assets you have in your fund. The assets can include the stocks, the commodities that we have said before. So next term is commission or sales charge. So commission is essentially paying money when you sell or buy an investment. So these commissions go directly to your fund manager. Now there are load mutual funds. There are ones that charge sales charges, and then there are no load mutual funds which do not charge sales charges, and they only charge MER. So there are two types, so load mutual funds and no load mutual funds. Now mutual funds have few options when it comes to sale charges. First is the initial sales charge or the front end load. So this is when you pay the fee right when you're investing your money. And when you gain back your invested money or when to sell your investments, then you do not have to pay a fee for taking your money out because you've already paid the fee at the start. Now the next one is deferred sales charge, DSC, or back end load. Now this is when you do not pay the commission at the start, you invest your money fully. Then when you go to sell this fund, there may actually be a fee that you have to pay just to sell these investments. Because often if you invest in a mutual fund for a number of years, you might end up paying no commission fee. So every single year, the commission fee will drop by a small amount until after around 6 years, it'll become 0%. So this is great for youth and young adults because it allows you to benefit from investing long-term, which is a good idea, without having to pay any commission fees at the end. So you will still pay the MER though. Like even if you're not paying commission fee, you will still pay the MER, but you won't have to pay the burden of the commission fee. So no load funds. Now I mentioned this before, no load funds, they do not charge sales charges and only charge MERs. So They tend to save investors a lot of money that would have gone to these certain fees. But however, depending on the portfolio that you have, a low mutual fund can end up making you more money than a no load fund would. So it is very important that you look at all of the provided information when picking up funds and comparing multiple funds before making a final decision. As we've said before, liquidity tests, safety tests, all that is included. So the benefits of mutual funds. So now that you've learned what mutual funds are, so you may be wondering what specific reasons are mutual funds beneficial for. So in the next set of slides, I'll cover each of these points in detail, and you can understand why mutual funds are beneficial, as well as the key points to look out for when investing in them. So diversity within your portfolio is correlated with less risk involved. Like today's camp where there's a lot of diversity I'm seeing, diversity is also really good for mutual funds. You have less risk involved. So you can create a diverse portfolio in many ways. So whichever category that you choose and invest in, so you'll be able to gain exposure to the various aspects of that category. So for instance, if you invest in stocks, then you'll be able to gain a portfolio of stocks from various companies and industries, food, technology, fashion, tech, a lot. And if you choose a combination of various categories, then your portfolio will be even more diverse, right? The reason that this diversity is important, again, it lowers the risk that you are taking. So if you invest your money in just one specific company only, and all of a sudden the value of the company goes down, the company goes bankrupt, the company is suffering from huge losses, then you will also be likely to lose a lot of money from that too. But on the other hand, if you invest your money in various companies, and if among those various companies, only maybe one company or two companies, their value drops, you won't have lost as much money as the former situation. So this is because you have money invested in various other areas. So the next benefit is that your investments are now managed by professionals. Now, this is a real concern for first-time investors. They don't really know where to invest in, how to invest in. But in a mutual fund, it is going to be managed by a fund manager. So there's a professional fund manager, and he's actively managing a portfolio and investments. And it is great for people who generally do not have a lot of money to hire someone to manage their money, but they still want their money to be managed well and effectively so they won't suffer from huge losses. So next benefit, low maintenance and convenience on your side. So this goes hand in hand with the last benefit, and that is when there is a professional managing your money behind the scenes, there is very little that you have to do on your part. So when you invest in a mutual fund, essentially everything will be taken care for you by the fund manager, and you do not need to keep a tab on it on a day-to-day basis. So this can be great for beginners like youth, because it is not as complicated as other forms of investments. But you should always remember to make sure to check your money and growth on a regular basis. Just because you do not need to keep a tab on your day-to-day basis does not mean that you should neglect it entirely. So reinvesting income. So when you earn interest and dividends from your investments, you can actually reinvest that money into your existing mutual fund, which will help your portfolio grow without having to open new mutual funds and even paying more fees. So again, here's another term here, dividends. They're actually small portions of a company's profit, and they are regularly paid to the company's shareholders, people who own shares. And the last benefit I'm going to mention here is beginner friendly. Obviously, it is beginner friendly, managed by a fund manager, but in addition to that convenience and to that simplicity, they're both important and they're suitable for beginners. They're also beginner friendly. So they're beginner friendly in the sense that you do not have to have a lot of money in order to invest in a mutual fund. So when you want to have a diverse portfolio by buying like individual assets such as stocks, then that can be quite expensive. But with mutual funds, you'll be paying a much lower amount of money and you'll still get a bundle of diverse investments. And that is well suited for beginners who generally do not have the budget to invest a lot in at the start. So while there are numerous benefits, we have learned several benefits of mutual funds, and they are excellent investment vehicles. As with anything, there are downsides to mutual funds, which we'll be covering in the next few slides. So one downside, one drawback is that you won't have control of your investments within the fund. Now, the convenience that comes obviously with having a fund manager is that someone is controlling your funds, and also comes at a cost, that is, because you do not have control over what you have invested, and you've handed that control over to the fund manager. So even if you would like to invest in, say, Apple stocks, you want to invest in several stocks, but it's the fund manager's own decision, not yours entirely. And too much diversity could also be a little drawback, because having diversity in your portfolio can be a double-edged sword. But we all have learned that you should not put all your eggs in just one basket, right? Because, well, like not putting all of them can be imperative and important. Like having your money spread in like too many areas, it can lead to you not benefiting from a certain sector, which provides high profits. So an example would be, let's say there's a given stock that does very well, but you only have one share of it. You only have one share of it, and all of your other investments are in other areas. So as a result, you will not have benefited nearly as much as if you had a few more shares of that given stock. So it may lead to less profit being made at times. And the fees can be incredibly high. So having to pay MER, as well as on some like loaded funds, sales charges, commissions charges, they can cost you thousands of dollars, depending on how long you invest and how much. And this is because, again, your money is being managed by fund managers, and they need to be compensated for their work. They can't just do it for free for managing your own fund. And this could even result in higher fees than some other investment options. So always try to find options that have lowest fees and the highest ROI rate. So, and lastly, mutual funds are not very tax efficient. So whatever amount that you make from your mutual funds, you will still have to pay capital gain taxes on it. So capital gain is profit from selling any assets. So for example, in your mutual fund, where the amount of money you've made from selling these assets that you have collected in your mutual fund, it can be higher than the amount you paid to get that asset, but you will still have to pay capital gains taxes. Okay, so now that we've learned about mutual funds, let's test your knowledge. So question number 1, please type in the chat box. So what are some key facts about mutual funds? Any key facts? Yep, that is correct. Yep, managed by a professional. Yes. Easier for beginners. It's really good. Yep, easier for beginners. So mutual funds, bundle of investments, yep. Yeah, by fund managers, beginner friendly. That is true. Okay, let's move on to question 2. So true or false? I can choose if I want a Pepsi stock or a Coke stock. Could I choose in a mutual fund? unanimously again, yes, it is false. I can't choose. So who chooses then? Who chooses if a Pepsi stock or a Coke stock? Fund managers, that is correct. So the third question is, what are some benefits to mutual funds? Just name at least one benefit. Yep, diversification, beginner friendly. That's really good. And the fourth question, what are some downsides though to mutual funds? Lack of control. Yep, that is correct. High fees. Too much diversification. Yep, that's a real problem. Yes. Yep, that is all correct. Now, the fifth question is, what is a no-load fund? What is a no-load fund? Yep, that is correct. It's no fees charged for buying or selling the fund. You're all correct. Really good. Congratulations. Good job. Now, my part here is ended. Thank you all. Any questions about mutual funds?
Okay, that was awesome. So now we can be joined by our speaker, Taylor Adams. So we can get started on that. Hi.
Hello there.
Hi, we're so excited to hear from you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to everybody.
We're so excited. So you can get started and introduce yourself and take this in any direction you'd like.
Awesome. Sounds great. So thanks again for having me. My name is Taylor Adams. I live just outside of the Boston area, and I am an entrepreneur and real estate investor. So a little bit about my background and my journey into what I'm currently doing right now. So I always knew that I wanted to start my own business. That was something I had wanted since I was a really little girl. I wanted to be my own boss, and I didn't really know what that was going to look like for me. So when I went to college, I went to Northeastern University in Boston. I got my degree in business entrepreneurship so that I could learn more about what it meant to start a business. And that was really my first foray into understanding how to put together a business plan and how to create a financial plan to launch a business. And so I started a couple small businesses while I was in college. None of them really got a bunch of traction because I still was trying to find my direction and figure out what exactly I was passionate about. So after I graduated from my undergraduate degree, I started working in a leadership development program in banking. And so I worked in that field for, it was about 2.5 years. And I realized that it just wasn't giving me a spark. It wasn't lighting me up inside. I wasn't able to help people, which was something else that I was really passionate about. So after working in banking for a little bit, I transitioned to higher education, and I worked in the business development area of the university and helped to launch campuses across North America. And that was really exciting to me because I was able to tap into this business side that I really enjoyed, but I was also able to work directly with students, which I loved, and it was specifically about entrepreneurship and how to launch a business, how to start a business, how to finance that venture that you're interested in. So I worked in that position for about just under 5 years, and while I was doing that, something I realized was that I really wanted to be able to go further, and I still wanted to be my own boss. So I started thinking about what that might mean. And my husband is a software engineer. And so I was like, tapping into that, that will be a great thing for us to look into doing some sort of business together. So we started a couple businesses while I was still working in higher ed. And we found that together it was something that we really enjoyed to doing as a couple, as partners, as business partners and life partners, which was super cool. So what I eventually ended up doing was investing in real estate to create passive income so that I could really focus on the things that I was passionate about, whatever that was. Because I truly believe that having multiple streams of income is what is going to really elevate you to the next level and help you to do whatever it is that sparks your passion, whatever drives you and you find is something that you're really interested in. So as we began to invest in real estate, I started to realize that this was something that I could help educate people on, different avenues that they could take and how they could use that to focus on investing in themselves. So what I ended up doing just about, it's been a little over a year now, I took our real estate business full time. And while I was doing this and trying to build a company that my husband could eventually join me full time and do as well, I realized that there was a gap. And it was a gap in women in real estate investing and generally in kind of business, entrepreneurship, all of that. So a good friend of mine from college, we reconnected, and she was also doing the same thing I was. And we were talking about how there was really no community for us that we could connect with other women who were doing the same thing. And so we were like, all right, well, I guess then we have to do it. So out of that was born what is now the Women's Investment Network, or WIN. And so WIN really is a network focused on inspiring women to pursue their passion by celebrating other female entrepreneurs, small business owners, change makers, leaders, whatever it is that they're doing that is that's going to show other women, other people that they can do this too. So now today, it is a podcast, it is a coaching program, both one-on-one and a self-paced program, and a community and a network. I know that I saw in some of the snippets from some of the previous days of this, you had heard about how your network is everything and how networking is really important. And there's this saying, I don't know if you've heard it in the last couple of days, but your network is your net worth. And I truly believe that, because networking is insanely important to help you to grow yourself and grow your mindset. And sometimes what happens when it comes to starting a business, investing in yourself, whatever that means to you, your mindset can hold you back, and it can make you feel, like you can't do it. Like you're having some sort of imposter syndrome. You're like, well, that person over there has all this experience, so of course they can do it. But me, little old me, like, there's no way I can do it. Of course you can. It's absolutely a mindset thing, but it's something we overcome every single day. It's not, one day you wake up and your mindset's like, bam, I'm in the perfect mindset and I can do exactly what I want. It's something you have to work on constantly. So the reason that I think that it's important to have a network, a community for women to invest in themselves is, one, the imposter syndrome I just spoke about, but business in general, banking, real estate investing, the financial industry as a whole can be pretty male dominated, and that can be a little intimidating, and it can prevent a lot of women from getting started. And why I think that is important is there's a lot of research out there that shows that when women are successful, then families are successful. So this is not just like a individual for the woman doing what she's doing, though that's amazing. It's also giving back to the community and the group that she has around her. So I think it's really important to embrace the challenges and the opportunities that come with, the financial industry as a whole. So as we think about here, real estate investing, and so I want to talk about a little bit about that specifically. So we started investing in real estate as our chosen investing platform because, one, I think it's a really easy type of investing to understand. It's real assets. You can see them, touch them, understand them. The numbers are actually pretty straightforward. For me, my dad growing up was a day trader, and for me, I'm just like, that's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is what can I look at, what can I see, what can I touch? And I love the community aspect and how you can really improve a community by improving real estate in areas and invest into that community. Because investing has layers like that. So that's what I love about real estate, is that you can really wrap your mind around it. You can understand what it is. And there's also so many ways to get started in real estate investing for no money down or very low money down. So it's attainable. It's something that can seem kind of intimidating when you are kind of looking from the outside looking in. But it really is something, once you start building that network and once you start doing a little bit of research and just talking to people, the real estate community is really open. Everybody wants to talk about real estate all the time. Trust me, I could talk for like 20 hours about it. But people are really willing to answer your questions, which I think is huge. So you already have a community behind you. The other really great thing about real estate is you can have that other job. If you have a career that you are super passionate about, you do that. You want to be a scientist, you want to be a software engineer, you want to be a teacher, you want to be a whatever, you can do that and still have this investing on the side, which is creating multiple streams of income. And something that we've learned from the pandemic is that having multiple streams of income is extremely important. With a W-2 job, your job is in someone else's hands a lot of the time. So to have something as a fallback until you can, find another job or take whatever it is that you're doing full time, having those multiple streams is super, super important. And I know that it's been talked about in the past too, the idea of financial freedom. And for me, what that financial freedom looks like is not just freedom, money freedom, but also time freedom, so that I can focus on the things that I love. So my husband and I, we really want to start a vineyard someday. That's like a big goal of ours. That's a big 10-year goal for us. And our real estate investing and any other, business ventures that we take on, that will fund our passion for the future. So as a whole, those are kind of the big things that I wanted to make sure that I touched upon, the Women's Investment Network, which I feel so passionately about, and then creating those multiple streams of income through real assets is really important. I would say that my biggest advice for anybody looking for advice, whether you're looking to start a business, invest, save, start a career, whatever it is, start early, start now, because you're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, why didn't I start when I was, X years old? Because the longer you wait to see results. So start early and invest in yourself, whatever that means to you. So that could be, starting a business, even if it's just a side hustle, that's an investment. Investing in your health, that's huge. Investing in a different type of asset, that's big. So listen to your intuition, follow your passion, and those are the things I wanted to make sure I covered with you today. And I know there's going to be a little bit of Q&A potentially. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to chat about.
That's awesome. I think the advice you give is really amazing, and the work that you do with Women's Investment Network and also in real estate is just really inspiring. So thank you for everything you just said.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
And if anyone has questions in the chat, I already see two, but if you have any questions, you can also type that in.
I love questions, so please shoot them over. Let's see. So one question I see here. So what are beginning steps in investing in real estate? So I would say the very first step that I would take if I'm interested in real estate investing is to understand the different types of investing. There's so many types. So there's long-term, so just a typical rental, annual lease sort of thing. There's short-term, which is, Airbnb, VRBO, etc. There's commercial, which is either retail, so like a strip mall, or there's commercial residential, which is, large apartment buildings. And then there's a million other things, but those are some of the more like easier ones to understand. So some of the first steps, head to some investing events, real estate investing events. There are a ton in your city. So I usually go on like Meetup. Meetup is probably the biggest one I go on to, and you'll find a ton of networking events to just talk to other people and see what they're doing. So that's one step I would take. The other step I would take is to consume as much information as you can. So there's lots of great resources out there to learn about real estate and find the type of real estate that's best for you specifically, because one type of real estate might be great for one person, but not great for another type of person. So Bigger Pockets is a great platform. They have a podcast. They have a ton of free resources. They also have a bunch of books that they've published that are really, really helpful. So I'd say start there, start with the networking events, start with the research, nail down what you're the most interested in, and then the sky's the limit after that. So how did you start in did you start investing? Where did you go? How much money did you start with? So awesome. So, okay. So our first investment property was actually the first property that we ever purchased. So my husband and I were living in an apartment for a number of years. We had just gotten married. We were talking about, getting our first single family, having, the white picket fence, dream, whatever. And then we were like, it would be really great if we could have someone help pay our mortgage. So we ended up purchasing a 2-family just outside of Boston. And so that's called a house hack. So a house hack can be a couple different things. So it's 4 units and less, and you basically live in 1 unit, rent out the rest. You can also do this with a single family where you rent out rooms. That's an option as well. So we purchased that property, and that was our first foray into real estate investing. We were able to do an FH8 loan. So we did 3.5% down, which is fantastic because it's very little money to invest in upfront into a property. And so if it's an owner occupied property, you can actually do this over and over again, as long as you move to the next place. So our house hack, 3.5% down. So the property we purchased, it was, we got it for $650,000, and so 40,000, I think, is what we ended up putting down on that property. We live in a very expensive area, but house hacking is a great way to get started. I always advocate for it. So we're actually going to keep house hacking for a little bit longer. So we will keep the property that we have, that's the 2 unit, and we will move to another house hack and then rent out the 2 units and then have another one. So it'll at least help you pay towards your mortgage, if not pay over your mortgage, and then you're cash flowing on that property. And another thing to say here with that one, how much money did we start with? You can find, in some areas of the country, you can find multifamilies that are way, way cheaper than what we purchased. We had to be close to the city, so everything was crazy expensive. So you can do much less down. You also can go in on it with a friend. That's another opportunity. There's partnership opportunities. The sky's the limit there. Let's see, how risky is real estate compared to stocks? Great question. So the thing with real estate is, it's like I was saying before, it's a real asset. You can feel it, you can touch it, you can see it. So over the long term, real estate stays pretty consistent. It tends to be less risky than investing in the stock market. The returns also tend to be better. So you're making more money on real estate. It tends to be more stable. So personally, I prefer real estate to investing in the stock market, but maybe you're a stock market person and that's totally fine too. Are these events open to minors? So there are events that are specifically for people under 18 that you can go to. A lot of these events though are held at like hotels, they're held at just some colleges. So honestly, there usually isn't any sort of age minimum unless there's some sort of drinking aspect to it. So just check that out. You can always reach out to the person who's heading up the event. They always have, they always are willing to share info, and I'm sure they'd be super excited to have younger people come and attend their events. What is my opinion on REITs? I think REITs can be great. They can be great for some people. I personally know a few people who invest into REITs, and they work great for them. So it's all about finding what your thing is. If you don't want to be the person who holds the property in your name or in an LLC or however you want to hold the property, then investing into somebody else's investments is a great option. It's a little bit less risky, but you are putting your money into somebody else's hands. So you just have to have that trust factor with other people. What are some resources that we can use to learn about investing? So like I mentioned, BiggerPockets is a really great resource for getting started. They have a podcast, they have many books. Brandon Turner has just How to Get Started in Real Estate Investing is literally a book he has, and it's a great place to start. We have a number of people on our podcast who have talked about their journey into real estate investing. You can check that out. That's the WIN podcast. And like I said, I do have a one-on-one coaching program and also a self-paced program that takes you through just thinking about getting started in real estate to your first property. So that's something you can check out as well. It's on our website, experiencewin.com. So those are some of the big ones I would say start there. So you need a lot of money initially. Not necessarily. So like I said, there's lots of options for investing in real estate. You can use your own money, which is self-funded. We've self-funded all of our properties thus far. However, there is plenty of opportunity for zero or low money down. So if you have, so for instance, a scenario that my husband and I are working on right now, we have investors who want to invest with us. And so basically what that looks like is we will acquire the property, we will manage the property, and our investors will then give us the money to purchase the property, and then they will get returns, and we will also get money for managing that property. And we don't necessarily have to put any money down. We can invest into the property as well so that we get higher returns, but that's a scenario where potentially we could have zero money into that investment. So that's an option. So not necessarily as far as getting started, you can also partner up with somebody who's more experienced and take a cut of the property management by helping them do the things that are challenging for them to do. Maybe it's cold calls, maybe they need someone to do door knocking. So there's lots of different options there. You don't need a ton of money to get started. Yeah. Let's see here. You guys have really great questions, and I love this. What stocks and real estate would you highly suggest investing in? So I would say, so for me personally, that's not something that we necessarily do. We do all firsthand real estate investing. So I don't have a good answer for that one, because that's just not something that we really deal with. Do you think that your undergrad was needed to do what you do? I don't. So the interesting thing, so I guess I yes and no, right? So for me, perhaps I needed the experience of what I got from college, not necessarily the whole of the education. The network I built, the different things that I had to work through in college. So actually Northeastern and most colleges now are super expensive. And I actually had to take some time off from school to be able to go back to school and afford it. So I worked 3 jobs because I really wanted to go back and finish my degree. You don't need a degree to get started in this stuff. This is something that you can start, you can start today. So for me, I think that it helped me on my entrepreneurial journey because I learned a lot. But now there's just so much access. There like these networking events, the different free resources out there in the world. I think that you don't necessarily need a degree to do it. I think it helped me, but I think it's a personal preference. How do you decide what's a good investment? Such a good question. So it depends on the asset. So let's talk about a long-term rental, just like a standard rental property that you lease for a full year. So we invest locally and we also invest out of state. So the reason that we invest out of state is because Massachusetts is super expensive. And in order for us to grow our portfolio here, we would have to have a ton of money to put into these properties. And also it's not a cash flow area. We're very cash flow focused investors. So we invest out of state in cheaper areas where the properties are cheaper, so lower barrier to entry, but in comparison, the rents are still pretty high. So there's a bunch of kind of rules of thumb when you think about a long-term investment. So there's the 1% rule, which depends on your market, but the 1% rule basically says that high level, if you see a property, if you're like on Zillow and you see a property for, let's say, $100,000 and the rent is $1,000, that, as per rule of thumb, is a good investment because it hits the 1% rule. But like I said, it doesn't work in every market. So there's different rules of thumb there. The biggest thing is to understand what you need to get out of the property. So for us, we need to be cash flowing, so above the mortgage, so after expenses, mortgage, all of that, we need to be cash flowing at least $300 a month for the asset to make sense for us. So you have to make sure that the time and effort that you're putting into the asset makes sense for the money that you're getting out of it. That's the biggest way that we know if an asset is going to make sense for us. Is it possible to do real estate investing if you have a full-time career? 150%, yes. I know lots of people who have full-time careers and they invest in real estate. So my husband and I did this for just under 2 years while we were both working full time. There's so many options. So like I said, there's opportunities where you can invest in someone else's real estate. There's you self-managing. And then there's also something that we do because we invest at a distance, where we have a property manager. So at our properties in Tennessee, we have a property manager who oversees those properties there. He reaches out to us, if there's turnover, if there's maintenance needs, and we just have to approve payments and stuff like that. But honestly, he takes care of most of it. I never think about those properties, which is pretty cool, especially if you work full time and you're not interested in like being hands-on and doing that kind of stuff. Totally fine. However, you can have a house hack and also work a full-time job. one of the other co-founder of the Women's Investment Network. Both her and her husband work full-time in a variety of different careers, and they invest out of state also in Airbnbs or short-term rentals. So 100% you can do it. So real investing isn't like investing through your phone like stocks. It's more in person. Do you need to become a real estate agent to do this? So first part of the question, it's more in person. So there are some options for investing through like platforms. So different platforms online. And that is that can be an option for some people. So that does exist. So yes, you can invest in real estate that way. Someone asked about REITs earlier. That's another way that you can invest not in person. That is with someone else. So it doesn't have to be in person. A large portion of it can be in person. Just depends on your take. And do you need to be a real estate agent to do this? No, absolutely not. You do not have to have a real estate license to invest in real estate. You just don't. And honestly, I would say you don't need to. I am a real estate agent. I have my license. I actually did it for about a year and then decided that, I was too focused on my other businesses. So I put that to the side. I still hold on to my license in case I want to pick up a property for me personally or help out a friend or a family member. Don't need it to invest in real estate. How would you recommend getting started specifically, or if you are 17 to 19 age range? I would head to some networking events, find a couple people that are doing something that you're interested in and learn from them. I would start there. I would start saving, but I would really find a mentor who can help you to figure out what you want to do. I've worked with plenty of people mostly in like the 18 to 22 age range, and they have multiple properties now by the age of like 22. Some people honestly you can accumulate properties before the age of 18 if you do it with a family member. So there's lots of options, but yeah, find a mentor, find some people you're interested in learning from, reach out to them. If they don't respond, try someone else, reach out to me, I'll respond. Let's see, how do you find your properties? So this is a mix. So with our properties locally, it's kind of just setting up different alerts on, so it could be Zillow, it could be Trulia. I have access to the platform for real estate agents, so I can set up alerts there. But honestly, just Zillow and Trulia is a great way to get started at least. So that's a great way to kind of see what's generally on the market. If you're looking for things that are off market, which tend to be a little bit more reasonable because people are trying to sell them quickly, they don't want to deal with taking it to market, you're going to want to, once again, network. So there are investors who will be providing property updates, sending newsletters. They're saying, hey, like this property is off market, and you can get that there. Let's see. Also, our property manager in Tennessee is also a real estate agent, so he brings us properties as well. Door knocking, mailers. Oh my gosh, I could talk for hours about it. So many ways. Okay, how do long-term rentals compare to Airbnb? So long-term rentals tend to be less active management, whereas Airbnbs are very active. So I've had both. So our upstairs unit, we actually had it as an Airbnb because Boston is, a place people are often coming to visit family, go to conferences, all that stuff. But we transitioned it once the pandemic happened because it just didn't make sense as an Airbnb anymore. So from a management perspective, Airbnb is much more hands-on. It's a much more like concierge service. You can make it more hands-off by automating it, which is a lot of what we did. We have keypads. We had automated messages that went out to our guests. but you're still going to get some messages from the guests asking questions about the property. You can partner with somebody to manage those questions. Just depends on your interest in the management piece. And then long-term rentals, you can self-manage, you can have someone else manage. From a cost perspective, for purchasing, Airbnbs have to be a little bit, nicer because people are going up there for a vacation. So sometimes that can be a higher ticket property, but it really depends on the area. Long-term rentals, there's lots of strategies with long-term rentals, something called a BRRRR, which is you buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So that's a strategy to basically pull money out of a property to invest in other properties. And then as far as from a monetary perspective, what you're actually getting from the property long-term versus Airbnb, Airbnb can be more lucrative, which is awesome. The piece about Airbnb that, the flip side of that is that it's not always consistent because, it's based on people vacationing or, traveling for work or, whatever they're doing. So can be more lucrative, can be less consistent. Long-term rentals, they tend to be more consistent, but they could be more, you're just hitting whatever number you need to hit. So it really depends. It kind of depends on the property. Let's see. How am I doing on time? Still doing okay? Let's see here. Can you invest in real estate without dealing with interest/mortgages? Yes. So you can. So there's a couple ways you can do that. So you could buy a property in cash, which means you wouldn't have a mortgage on the property. That's like a big way to do it. That obviously costs a lot of money up front, but you 100% can do it that way. And then the other piece that you can do is you can invest with someone else, and that person can deal with the mortgages and, deal with all the lenders, deal with, all the payments or whatever. And they just, you just give them some sum of money to invest into a property. Or you could just partner with someone to learn. It kind of depends on like where your interest lies. But yeah, there's definitely ways to invest without dealing with that. How much do you first earn as a beginner? That's a varied question. So when we first, so I'll give you hard and fast example of our first property. So like I mentioned, we purchased it for $650,000. We put about $35,000 down on that property. And when we first started renting it, we were renting it for $2,000 a month. And our mortgage was $3,800 a month, I think. So we were still paying about $1,800 towards the mortgage, which in our area was way less than we were paying for rent. So we were like, super, that's awesome for us. Now though, our renter is paying $2,300 and we were able to refinance our mortgage, and it's now $3,300. So we're only paying $1,000 a month. So that's even better. We can save more money. So that's an example of a two-family in our area that's very expensive. A friend of ours in another house hack situation, I think he bought his first property. It was 21. It was a two-family. I don't remember what he purchased it for. I think it was something around $600. But he was actually cash flowing above the mortgage $500 a month. And the way that he was doing that with a two-family, because it can be a little harder with a two-family to cash flow. It does depend on the area, but around us, it's more challenging. You need a three-family really if you're house hacking. So what he did is he lived in one unit with his girlfriend and had a roommate in that unit, and then rented the second unit to another person. So he was able to get basically like every last penny out of that property, so that he could have money above the mortgage. So as a beginner, I mean, honestly, you could be making, 30 grand a year on a property. It really depends on the type of property you're invested in, how invested you are in doing the work, and what you're looking to do and how you're looking to do it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, you can make a lot of money right away. So I think that's the last question I see here. I don't know if there's any last minute questions. Pop them in.
That was amazing. I think that your perspective and insight on real estate investing is awesome because we haven't had that in these events yet. And so it was great hearing from you. And I think everyone had awesome questions. So thank you for answering everything. And thank you for joining us here today.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you having me. It's been a pleasure. You guys have awesome questions. I'm so excited to see where you guys go next. Oh, my website is experiencewin.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Taylor Coleman Adams. And I can pop that into the chat. And yeah, send me a DM. Happy to chat. So thanks, guys.
And one more thing, if everyone can turn their cameras on to take a picture with you, that would be awesome.
Yeah, of course.
So we're going to give everyone a chance to do that right now.
I get to put all these lovely faces to the questions. I love it. Thanks, guys.
Okay, great. So I'm going to take the picture now. Okay, great. I took the pictures. Thank you, everyone. And thank you again, Taylor Adams, for joining us today. It was awesome.
Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so if you guys ever want to message her, she always answers her Instagram, as she said, and you can also go to her website and talk with her. I think that was amazing, and hearing her perspective again on real estate is awesome because we did not have that in any part of the event. Now we're going to have around a 5-minute break because yesterday in the feedback forums, that is something that people talked about. So I'm going to put some music and we're going to have a 5-minute break. And then after that, we can continue and talk about stock investing as well as index funds. I'm going to turn on music right now.
Game over.
Okay, now we can get started with index funds and stock investing. I'm going to begin sharing my screen right now.
Okay, so before we start, I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Sharia, and I'm a mentor at EmpowerEcon, and I'm sure a lot of you remember me from yesterday's boot camp as well. So we'll get started with index funds. So index funds are an interesting type of investments to cover. In fact, a survey shows that most Americans are uncomfortable with the term index funds when it comes to the most talked about financial terms. Basically, index funds are a type of a mutual fund or an exchange traded fund, or a ETF. They also offer ownership in a wide array of stocks rather than just one stock, and this is very similar to a mutual fund. And this offers an immediate diversification, which is also a characteristic of a mutual fund. The word index means portfolio stocks and bonds, and index funds mimic the financial market index. Who here can give an example of a financial market index? And if you remember from yesterday, Tim was speaking about these. So just type it on, just type a financial market index in the chat. So a very popular example is the S&P 500, which Tim was talking about yesterday, and this shows the performance and are composed of the largest 500 companies in USA. Now, a financial market index is present to give you, the investor, a general overview of how the markets are doing, because they are composed of the largest 500 companies which most people invest in. A significant rise or decrease in a fund such as the S&P 500 conveys that there may be a bull, which means a profitable, or a bear, which means a declinable season coming up. One cannot invest in a financial market index, so that is where they use index funds, which mimic the financial market index. These index funds are run by companies and are known to be a source of passive income because they are not actively managed, hence the lower expense and fees. So basically what this means is that index funds such as the S&P 500, you can't actually buy them. Financial market index such as the S&P 500, you cannot actually buy them. So that is where you use index funds, which are actually run by companies and other corporations which mimic the S&P 500, and that is where you invest in to buy the S&P 500, because you cannot directly buy it, so you have to buy it from another company. And I would give more example of this later on. So okay, this is probably a lot to take in. If everyone can just write down in the chat how they're feeling about this topic right now, and if there's anything I need to go through again, because this is the basics and this would be required for you to understand, so we can move on to the more advanced stuff. And yes, Dow Jones Industrial is also a type of a financial market index, and that is also one of the more popular ones. So just write in the chat how you're feeling about this right now. All right, that's good to know that the basics make sense. So we can try moving on to the more advanced stuff, and it should be noted that almost every financial market index has an index fund, and there are various companies who sell these index funds. And when you invest in one, you need to make sure that you are investing with the right company, and I will also be explaining this further on. Oh, sorry, Amita, can you move a slide back? Yeah. So how many index do you all think there are in the USA? Just take a number, just guess. Just put a number in the chat below how many indexes you think there are in USA. So I'm seeing a lot of numbers between 10 to 500, and in fact there are approximately 5,000 indexes in USA, and this means for almost every one of these financial market index there is an index fund which you can invest in, and the index that would be a good place to start from is the S&P 500. So the S&P 500 is a stock market index which composes and measures the performance of the 500 largest companies listed in the American stock market. So as you could imagine, this index gives you a general whiff of how the markets are doing. As you can see, yesterday S&P closed at $3,695. Now let's see how this compares with index funds, which you could actually buy and invest in, unlike the S&P 500, which is just there to give you a general whiff of how the markets are doing. As you can see, the price of the ETF compared to the actual market index has a significant difference because they have their own way of calculating the performance of the 500 largest companies. But let's take a look at these graphs. So in this graph, what is similar between the actual market index and the index one? So you could just unmute yourself and say it. What is something which is common between these three graphs?
They went down and then went back up.
Yeah, so they're going down and going back up. And it should be noted that these are three different types of graphs. And one of them is the S&P 500 index fund, S&P 500 financial market fund, and the other ones are index funds. So just take a look at this. Although there is a large price difference, the S&P 500 index, the Vanguard 500 index fund ETF, and the iShares Core show the same growth pattern during market hours, and market hours are the times where you can actually buy these index funds. So they both dip down in the chart and then start rising back up by 10 a.m. This is because even though there is a difference between how the performance is calculated for both of them, as you can see, the Vanguard and iShares Core, these two, they just simply mimic the S&P 500. So first, it should be noted that an ETF is like stocks. You can buy it from the stock market while using an online brokerage. However, an index fund can only be bought through a fund manager, as mentioned with mutual funds. That is why ETFs are more popular than index funds. The thing that creates a difference in price between these indexes is the way these companies, which are Vanguard and iShares Core, operate. So we have seen that they mimic the S&P 500, and they all follow the principle of passive investing, which means having a passive form of investing. So you buy it once and then you just wait until it grows. So you just buy it once, you leave it there, and then it automatically grows, and you don't really have to do anything. That is what the principle of passive investing is. And these companies make their income as they charge you an expense ratio. So Vanguard and iShares Core both charge 0.03% in their expense ratio, which means for every $1,000 you invest in the ETF, in the exchange traded fund, you have to pay 30 cents to these companies in commission. That is 0.03% of 1,000. Now, this may sound like a very small figure, but with millions of investors, this figure really starts to add up. The expense ratio for similar funds would be a whopping 0.91%. So for every $1,000, you have to pay $9.10 in commission. Bringing the expense ratio to 0.91. So you can see why index funds are so popular, because both these companies have different asset values, a reputation, and a different number of clients, and a different organizational structure, and that is why they have a price difference between their figures. So that is why you could see. That iShares Core is worth more than Vanguard, because although they both mimic the S&P 500, their ETF also shows how these exchange traded funds are managed, which along with the expense ratio creates a difference of price and composition between them. So basically these companies need to make money to operate, and they do so by having low expenses, and these low expenses are what attracts investors to invest in these exchange traded funds which just mimic a financial market index, and that is what determines how high their price is. Because as you can see, their ETF also represents how their company is doing. And if the company is doing poorly, obviously the ETF would also be doing poorly. And there's just a mix of all these variables and factors that come in when determining the price for these. So that is why it's really important that you do your research and find the right company to buy your index fund with. Okay, so that was probably a lot of numbers and a lot to take in. And I feel like that this is a good place to conclude with index funds, as this is probably a fairly new concept for a lot of you, and I do not want to make all of you confused. Now, do you have any questions regarding this? So if you have any questions, you can just put them out in the chat. Okay, so I guess we can move on to stocks now. So stocks would be a bit of a longer concept to cover. So think of your favorite company. You know what? In fact, type the name of your favorite company in the chat. Whichever is your favorite company. This could be the company you watch your TV shows with, or the company you buy your groceries with. Tesla, I'm seeing a lot of Teslas. Apple. All right, yeah. So now stock give you the chance to own a very, very tiny part of that company, of your favorite company, such as Tesla or Apple. And when investing, you want to maximize your chances of making a profit, because you are, of course, trying to increase your net worth. So you will look for a company that you think is going to do well and be profitable. And you are going to invest in that company by becoming the owner of an incredibly small piece of that company, a microscopic piece. This is a stock and a share of that company. While stocks are great and popular investments, one challenge is that they are not as safe as mutual funds or index funds. This means that there is a high risk of losing your money through an investment in the stock market. They are, however, liquid and also offer a high rate of return. And by liquid, as you all remember, liquid means that you could sell your stock at any time to get your cash back. So when we say the term, I bought a stock, we just say that you bought ownership in a company. You invested your money in a company. Stock is the ownership of a corporation. That company you invested in is able to grow because you invested your money towards its growth. In this scenario, the company made a profit, and so did you, because the stock rises up as a company grows. So it's a win-win situation for both you and the company you invested in. Along with a solid business plan, any business needs capital to rapidly grow and expand its operations. And just think about how companies such as Walmart, Amazon, and Apple were able to grow so rapidly that they were able to monopolize the competition. And this was just due to the money that you invested in these businesses. It was due to the public money that was put into these businesses. And that is the reason that they were able to grow so rapidly and expand their operations. Now, a share is a unit to measure ownership. Each share has a different measurement. For example, for Apple, a share is worth $128, while for Twitter, a share is worth $54. So don't get these two terms mixed up. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that a more costly share represents a higher worth company, as companies often split their stock to make it more affordable for the investor to invest in. That means that if one share was previously for $500, now 5 shares would be for $500, and this is just depending on how the company decides to split their share. So who knows the two companies that recently split their stock, and this was all over the news. Answering your question, So what determines the stock price of a company is that, so basically it's a thing of supply and demand. When there's a lot of people buying the share, then the stock price would rise up, and when there's a lot of people selling the share, then the stock price would go down. And yes, Apple and Tesla were the two companies that recently split their stocks in order to make it more affordable for the general public. Now, as for the market itself, it is just a ground where money is traded. When a lot of people buy a stock, its price increases, and when a lot of people sell a stock, its price decreases, which makes it a money trading ground. In the modern day, you would probably buy your stock using an online brokerage. A brokerage is merely a mandatory middleman between your purchase and the stock exchange. The stock exchange is a place where stocks are listed. Usually, each country has at least one stock exchange where companies that are registered under that country can list their stock for the public, which is us, the investors, to buy. So Canada has one stock exchange, the Toronto Stock Exchange. Who knows how many stock exchanges does USA have, and what are they? Feel free to type your answer in the chat. Yeah, so USA has two stock exchanges, and they're the New York and the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. So the New York Stock Exchange has all the companies that are so the New York Stock Exchange has all the companies that are listed in USA, so that are listed under the American companies, and all those companies are traded under the New York Stock Exchange. And Nasdaq has the top 100 tech stocks. So Nasdaq only has the top 100 tech stocks, while the New York Stock Exchange has all the other stocks. So stocks such as Apple and Google or Alphabet, they are listed under Nasdaq, but stocks such as Walmart or even Gap, they are listed under the New York Stock Exchange. So, buying and selling is the most simple way to describe how the market operates. You simply buy a stock in which you get a microscopic amount of equity and ownership in a business, and the business uses your money to grow their operations. However, selling is a bit more complicated than buying, especially in the back end. When selling, you usually sell that ownership for a profit. With selling, there are two sides, the buyer and the seller. Just like in any store you visit, the store, who's the seller, gives you the product and you pay cash in return. Similarly, in stocks, there are two sides, the buyer and the seller. In this case, the seller must sell its stock and the buyer must give the money to its broker to buy the stock. The stock market is a fast-paced setting, and these purchases happen within seconds, so usually you will always find a buyer and a seller. However, in the rare case, the SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commissions, give 3 days for the seller to deliver the stock certificate and the buyer to get the purchase money. Previously, the SEC gave you 5 days, but now, due to technological advancements and online brokerages, such trades are a lot more fast-paced. So, can anyone guess in what type of companies would the buyer actually need to wait 3 days to get their money? Or sorry, to get their stock? In what type of companies would you need to wait? So usually would need to wait, and mostly smaller size companies that not a lot of people invest in. So usually for those you would need to wait 3 days. But even for those, there's always investors ready to buy their shares. So even for those, you don't necessarily need to wait 3 days. It might just take you a few minutes or to a few hours, but not necessarily you don't need to wait 3 days. But it's usually with smaller companies that a lot of people don't invest in. But for larger companies such as Apple, Twitter, Alphabet, Walmart, Tesla, for those sorts of companies, you don't need to wait. Those sort of trades, they happen within seconds. So, short selling. Now, this is an interesting concept to grasp because in short words, this means that you would profit off of a company's loss. An investor profits off of the drop of the share. Okay, but how does that happen? Basically, the investor borrows a security and immediately sells it out on the open market with the plan to buy back later. Now let me give you a real life scenario. I have this eraser over here and this costs $2. my friend has this eraser and I borrow it from him. So I borrow this eraser from my friend, and the value of this eraser is $2. Now I immediately sell this eraser to someone else for $2. In this case, I did not actually own the eraser. I sold my friend's eraser, so that means I still have to give it back to him, and I am short an eraser. A week later, due to the high supply and low demand, the price of this eraser drops down to $1.50 from $2. So I will buy this eraser back at $1.50 and give it to my friend. So in this case, I just made 50 cents by betting on the decreasing cost of this eraser, because I sold it for $2 and bought it back for $1.50 and simply just returned it to my friend. Similarly, in stocks, you borrow a company's shares, put it out in the market, and buy it back later at a lower cost to make a profit. Now, this scenario above, where I sell this eraser to another person, all happens within seconds by your brokerage. So all you need to focus on is the decreasing price of the various companies. That's all your concern. Your brokerage handles the back end. In short words, you make a profit when the price is reduced and a loss when the price is raised of the stock. Short selling is a high risk and a high profit scheme because you're betting on a company's loss. Now, I want you to search your favorite company up. Search up your company plus stock price. So my favorite company is Apple. So search up Apple plus stock price. So let's see how Apple is doing. So look at that. Apple has been soaring through all these years, to the past year. Now this would be a bad choice to short sell because their stock has been significantly rising up throughout the year. But however, let's look at my favorite airline. So there we go. The red line is what we need for short selling. Now this stock would be a really good choice to short sell as it has been performing poorly, which would make it an ideal choice to bet against and short sell, because this is the type of stock that you would make a profit in because it has been declining in its value. So this is the ideal stock for short selling. So there are actually two types of stocks that you can buy, a common and a preferred stocks, and these both work in parallel directions. A common stock represents ownership in a corporation. With a common stock, you get voting rights for the board of directors. Wow, imagine having the privilege to vote for someone like Sundar Pichai to be the CEO of Google. It all happens when you get ownership of a company. However, as fun and exciting as it sounds, you're probably the last person to get a payout if the company sinks under and closes its operation. So you most likely won't be able to get your investment back if such an event occurs. With a common stock, however, you also get this thing known as dividends. Now think of dividends as an incentive. You get to continue holding on to the share. The company pays you a piece of their profit every quarter. Just unmute yourself or type it in the chat. What is a quarter? What a quarter is, and a hint, it's not 25 cents. So what a quarter is when we talk about stocks. So a quarter is a quarter of the year, and yes, so that would be 3 months. So that would be 3 months every fiscal year. So the company gives you a quarterly dividend every 3 months for holding onto the share, and usually this is 1 to 5% of the value of the share at the given quarter. So at the given day, at the given 3 months, it's the value of the share and the percentage along with it. So every quarter, if a stock is priced at around $100 consistently for the year, you can earn $5 every quarter, which sums up to around $20 a year just to hold on to the stock. Now, tech stocks don't usually give out dividends, and this is because they soar very high, as we just saw with Apple, that even during COVID-19, it was doing pretty good, and it rose up significantly, and it rose up that much that they needed to split their share. And their prices, they increase exponentially, so they don't need to give out quarters because their stock already performs well, and that already brings in investors. Now, preferred stocks are kind of the opposite of common stocks, although they also represent ownership in a corporation. With a preferred stock, you're the first one to get a payout. However, you don't get any voting rights for the board of directors of a company. You have to pay a premium for preferred stocks. Now, when you search up your company plus stock price, you would get the value of the common stock. So you get the face value, which is the value of the common stock. However, for preferred stocks, you pay a premium because you are one of the first few people to get a payout if the company sinks under or shuts down. And this just attracts a lot of investors because this means that their investment is protected. And along with this, you also get preferred claim on assets. So these assets could include product or inventory if it's a company such as if it's any company in fact that's listed on the stock exchange. This could also include buildings. So this could be the offices that they have or the buildings that they own. This could be cash. So this could be the liquid that the company has on hand. And finally, this could be intellectual property. So intellectual property are intangible creations of the human mind. So intellectual property could be this design for a phone that you have, which you know would sell a lot. And then that intellectual property is valued by professionals and as a preferred stock owner, you get a preferred claim on that as that is considered to be an asset for the company. So you can actually learn and practice your trade using using stock trading simulators. And now this would allow you to familiarize yourself to the markets. And there are various stock simulators that you can use, such as the Investopedia stock simulator and the Market Watch simulator. In these, you trade in the real-time markets using fake money. In some cases, you can even register for competitions which give a cash prize for the person with the highest net worth by the end of the given period. So I have created a competition for you all to join, to practice and improve your knowledge in the stock market, and Armida can send out an email for that. And I want you all to pick a sector. So basically what a sector is, that a sector is kind of like a group which determines which determines a group of companies. So for example, there's the energy sector, which has stocks such as Esso and Shell, which are oil stocks because that's comes under energy. And for the sector, it's just something that you are interested in and passionate about. So for example, if you love playing video games, then your sector could be the video gaming industry. Or if you love watching movies, then your sector could be the cinema sector. So research stocks in your sectors, and these could be the EA Sports, the Activision for the people who have an interest in the video gaming sector, or the Cineplex for the people who have an interest in the cinema sector. And make your trades using these stocks that you have researched that are present in your sector, as you would be the most knowledgeable and interested in these. Now in the chat, type what sector that you are most interested in. And remember, a sector is just a group of stocks together, which are just listed. It's just a group which is listed, which has multiple stocks in it, and a sector just represents kind of the umbrella for all these stocks. So a sector just represents what kind of a business all these stocks are in. Yeah, so technology is a sector. Real estate is a big sector. So technology is actually a pretty big sector. So you could even narrow technology down. Yeah, healthcare is also a sector. So there's healthcare insurance companies, and even in the USA, since hospitals are privatized, there could also be even hospital stocks. Airline industry is one of the biggest sectors out there. So that's a pretty big sector for Canada and USA. Entertainment sectors out there, yes. Energy sector, that's one of the big ones as well. So yeah, this is awesome. So in the chat, so if you need any help or suggestions throughout your trading time, you can feel free to reach out to me, and I can give you suggestions, or I can probably link you with some articles or stuff that you can read to clear any doubts that you have. Now, entering the market as a teen is a bit more complicated than it seems, because the minimum age to make a stock trade is 18 and above. So as a teen, your choices are to get a custodial account in which your parents will have full control regarding the investment decisions that you make. So if you think that Apple is going to significantly rise up, but your parents don't think so, it's your parents' choice over yours. Or you can use your parents' account and advise them regarding these stocks. And even if nothing works out, then just practice and learn and prepare yourself so when you're 18, then you can start trading stocks. In this age, we have the medium of technology to basically help us teach anything. So if you're interested in the stock market, then do learn and prepare yourself so when you are able to trade, then you have the skills to do so and support yourself. Okay, so I've been speaking for about half an hour, which is a long time for me to sit down here. So how about we just start with some questions that would test your knowledge and would revise what I just taught you. So, what is an index fund? Yes, so an index fund is a group of stock, and an index fund is so an index fund is a stock that comprises of a variety of stocks, but however, it's not in that sector. It just comprises of a variety of stock, and it's usually either the top performing stocks, and it's usually the top performing stocks, or sometimes even in that sector for a stock for index funds such as the Nasdaq Composite, which only has technology stocks. And yes, so the answer that is the most correct answer would be it's a type of a mutual or an exchange trade fund. So what is the financial market fund for the largest 500 American companies? The S&P 500, yes. So the S&P 500 measures the performance and gives you an overview of how the largest 500 American companies are doing. What is one characteristic of a common stock? Yeah, so a common stock gives you voting rights. Does anyone else have any other characteristic? So you're the last to get a payout. And yes, and you get a dividend with that. So which sector of stocks usually does not get a dividend? So which type of stocks usually does not get a dividend, as a dividend is optional for a company to give, and it's just there to attract investors. Yes, so tech stocks usually don't get a dividend, because they soar very high and their price always keeps on increasing. So that's why they don't get a dividend. However, there is the outlier of Apple, and Apple actually gives out a dividend, unlike its other competitors such as Alphabet or Tesla, which don't give out any dividends. So how many days does the SEC give to the seller to deliver the stock certificate? Yeah, so the SEC gives the seller 3 days to deliver the stock certificate, and in the olden times they gave you 5 days because but now due to technological advancements, it's a lot easier to deliver your stock certificate and for the buyer to deliver the cash to buy the stock. So that's why it's 3 days. Oh, sorry, and I should mention 3 business days, not just like 3 days, 3 business days. Okay, so awesome. So as I can see that you guys kind of understood the midst of stocks and index funds. So if you guys have any other questions, then you guys can feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to Armida, or you can reach out to basically anyone at EmpowerEcon, as we are here. We are here to basically like help you out. And now I think we have a Kahoot. We have a Kahoot which you all can participate in. So something fun coming up.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. And so now we are going to do the Kahoot. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second just to get that set up, and then we can get started on that. Okay, so I'm going to get it started now. And the game pin is going to start loading soon. So the pin is on the screen, and if everyone can join, that'd be awesome. And we can get started. Okay, so I think we can get started, and then more people can join after if they want. Yeah, so there are 14. Most people got that correct, which is awesome. 5,000, I mean. Yeah, so there are 2. Great job. I think people.
So the two. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
go.
so,
Actually.
yeah, so the two sides are the buyer and the seller when you're selling your stock, and the broker is just a middleman who helps facilitate this transaction. So this was a bit of a trick question, but there are two sides when you are selling your stock. So this is good that most of you got brokerage correct. So just remember that that there's a lot of complexity behind short selling and all that. And the brokerage and your brokerage is responsible for handling all that complexity, and that is why you actually pay them a fees. But because they are responsible to do this, so you don't have to worry about this. So neither you or the stock exchange or the buyer. So none of you have to worry about this, and that is why you pay the brokerage a fee to handle all of this. So that is the current price of the S&P 500 index. So that's so last night it closed at $3,695. So the brokerage, that's a middleman between in the stock transaction between the company and the buyer, or the buyer and the seller, and the brokerage helps facilitate all these stock transactions. So ETFs, just like your regular stocks such as Apple, Alphabet, or Tesla, you can buy ETFs from the stock market, hence the name exchange traded funds, and you only buy your mutual funds from a fund manager. So a preferred stock does not give you voting rights in a company. A preferred stock gives you a payout, a premium, and you have to pay a premium for the stock. And just like your common stock, a preferred stock also gives you ownership in a company, although you have to pay a premium for that ownership. So the minimum age to make your independent transaction is 18. If you're under 18, then you need a custodial account, but your parents are going to have full control over your investments and investment decisions. So remember that Walmart is not a tech stock, so it won't be traded under NASDAQ. Walmart is not a Canadian company, so it won't be traded under the Toronto Stock Exchange. And Walmart is not listed in UAE, so obviously it won't be traded under the Dubai financial markets. But however, Walmart is an American company, so that's why it would be traded under New York Stock Exchange. So I think that there was an error with the correction in that question, but the correct answer is actually 0.03, which is the expense ratio for Vanguard 500 and iShares score. But there was an error with the correction of the question. But the correct answer is actually 0.03. So my apologies for that.
Great job, everyone. That was amazing. Congrats to all of you and also to the runner-ups. You guys did awesome. And so that concludes our event. But before everyone leaves, first thing is we want everyone to fill out a feedback survey, which is something that I'm going to be sending in the chat right now. As always, we want to hear your thoughts on what you liked about the event, not just today, but the past 3 days, because we are planning on holding future events. And so your input is always important. I'm going to send the link in the chat right now. So if everyone can fill that out, it will be awesome. And also we did say that we are going to be doing a book giveaway. And so people who come from the US or Canada are eligible for that. And we will be picking based on people who have filled out the survey. So if you want to be eligible for that, also type in your email, because then we'll be randomly selecting through that. Oh, I mean, like fill out the form and then type your email at the top of the form so that we can find you that way. So I'm going to give everyone about 3 to 4 minutes to do that, and then we're just going to say our final goodbyes.
Game over.
And once you've filled out the survey, please type that you're done in the chat so that we know. Okay, guys, so thank you to everyone who filled out the surveys. Right now, I'm going to share my screen for a final closing ceremony, and then everyone can go. Okay, so this is kind of like a mini closing ceremony. So number one, thank you to everyone who joined us today. And for the past 3 days, whether you came for the first time today or you've been attending other days, we are so excited that you guys enjoyed this event. And we are looking forward to seeing you again in the future if you're interested. And also shout out to our team, because from the mentors to the marketing members, curriculum designers, event planners, and just volunteers, everyone has helped make this event possible. And everything that you saw today is the EmpowerEcon team helping together. So a huge shout out and thank you to our awesome team who have helped put this event together. And then also the surveys that I already mentioned, thank you to everyone who's filled it out. If you have not done so, we will also be sending it in our emails, so you can fill it out there as well. And it would greatly be appreciated, because we do want to be able to learn about what you guys liked and what you guys didn't like, and how we can address that in our future events as well. And also, we are going to be sending you an invitation to Chloe's newsletter, as we talked about in the morning. We're also going to be sending you certificates for participating in this event, as well as some worksheets that our members at EmpowerEcon have made relevant to today's content. And our website will also be featuring the recordings of this event soon. Once the website is up, we're going to send you information about that as well. And if you want to help organize the event, we're also going to be opening up applications for new people to join our team. So we will be emailing you about that as well once we get that in order. So if you're interested in helping make the event, that is also possible. Again, thank you so much for joining us for these past 3 days and for being a part of this event, because you guys made it so awesome and so exciting. And for me, these past 3 days have been absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for joining. And you can follow us at EmpowerEcon on Instagram, and you can post a picture of you attending the camp and post it on your story and tag us, and we will feature that on our page. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And once again, thank you to everyone who has joined. So that concludes our event. I'm so happy that you guys enjoyed this event. That just makes me really happy. Bye, guys. Thank you as well. Bye. Bye, everyone. I'm going to end the meeting now.